సభకి నమస్కారం. ఇవాళ నేను అనుకుంటున్నాను, నా జీవితంలో ఒక చాలా మంచి రోజని. శంకరన్ గురించి మాట్లాడాలంటే ఎంతసేపన్నా మాట్లాడచ్చు, మాట్లాడకపోవచ్చు. చాలా ఏళ్ళుగా 80s నుంచి ఆయన హైదరాబాద్ వచ్చినప్పటి నుంచి స్నేహం అయితే ఇంటికంత వచ్చేది, పోయేదంత కాదు. ఆయనకు సెక్రటరీలు చాలామంది వచ్చేది, ఆయన తిరిగే చోట్లు ఉండేవి. ఇంట్లో అంటే ఆ స్నేహం అనేది అప్పుడు లేదు. ఎప్పుడైతే అది చాలా గాఢంగా ఏర్పడిందో, షల్ ఐ స్పీక్ ఇన్ తెలుగు, యూ వాంట్ ఇంగ్లీష్? ఓకే. సో when did that change? That was when Shankaran set off on a tour with his friends into the forest to see what was happening and to examining conditions there. And suddenly over the radio we hear that he has been kidnapped by Naxalites who are demanding that a colleague of theirs who's in Warangal jail should be released, if he is to be released. And it was a dangerous situation. I can't tell you how tense and how unhappy and how terrible that was. Waiting, listening to the radio, waiting for calls to Kanna. Then finally, Kanna decided, they said that Kanna could intervene. And so Kanna went, I think it was Uganda that he went, into the forest. And meanwhile, Shankaran would tell me, these Naxals would take him walking and walking and walking through the forest. They didn't know very much. So he would talk theory to them. He would talk Marxist-Leninist theory. He would say, do you know this book? Do you know that? He tried to keep entertaining them. They would listen and learn, but still walk away. That's the way he tried to get over. But he says there was so much walking in the forest that for days afterwards, days, months afterwards, all night he would dream that he was walking. He was an extraordinary man. He must have been proud, but you could see no sign of his pride. What you saw outside was a humility, but I know that that kind of humility doesn't exist without some kind of a pride, some pride in something, in principle or whatever, to uphold you. He was there. For me, he was a very dear friend. Once Kanna went and he came back. After that, earlier he used to be an occasional visitor. But after that, he was a weekly visitor. Sometimes every third day he would be there. But with no weekend passed at home without Shankaran there for dinner on Saturday. He would have come, sit, long chat. Very much part of the family. He would spend time playing with my grandchildren. Long time arguing with Kanna. Long time arguing with me. And then other people would, sometimes we had hints of people wanting to come because Shankaran was there, but we put them off. Not because of any selfishness, but because they could go to his house, we could go to his office. But this was private time for us. And he was precious. Because wherever we went after that, we went on a holiday to Sikkim, Shankaran was with us. There was a threat to Kannabiran's life. And then the children, my daughter said, we can't put up with you anymore, just go off now to the US, because watching every minute, and there used to be guns pointed at the house. And they said, we can't live with this uncertainty, go. So we picked up our granddaughter, and Kanna and Shankaran and I left. Shankaran was automatically part of any group that went, so we went off. And lived with my older daughter who was there. Spent a couple of months. Went around seeing things. And the joke about him always was his addiction to his morning coffee. Whenever we traveled, he wanted that one cup of coffee in the morning as soon as he got up, and that was so difficult sometimes in some places to get. But it was something I can't tell you how much I have learned from that man. How many long hours. He was everybody's friend. He played with the children. He sat and talked to my children. He had long conversations with them. He had long conversations with me. How we got the time to do all that, I don't understand, but he was such an integral part of the family. But what I feel bad about was that in some ways we were probably responsible for the shock that made him die. Because the night before that, he was in our house. And he would walk in and out, and Kanna had had a bad leg, and the leg had been amputated. Now poor Shankaran, when he thought amputated, had never seen his leg. So he thought maybe it's a toe, one toe or two, he didn't know half the leg had been removed. And whenever he went to talk to Kanna would be covered with a blanket, so he didn't know what was under. But he went in and out of the house, so one day he went in and talked to him, then went out to have a bath, and then suddenly thought of something and walked into his room. And then the nurse had removed the blanket and he saw the stump. He didn't say anything, he went back and had a bath. He could hardly eat breakfast, he didn't say anything about it. And then he said, I want to go home. I said, Shankaran, stay, people come and go, I can't talk to them, I'm so tired. If you would just stay, it would be a support for me. And he was always a support for me. You stay, it'll be nice. He said, no, I have to go home. I have to go home. And the driver went to drop him home, and the driver said the whole way he kept saying, this is bad, this should not happen. So obviously he was deeply disturbed. He went home. 3 hours later, we got a call that he had passed. So somewhere I think that shock, I mean, they'd grown very close. They were very, they would fight, they would argue. And I remember Kanna every now and then would say, Mr. Shankaran, you don't know anything. Mr. Shankaran. And Shankaran would reply in a very soft voice. And many times I have thought, because when I was chatting with him, he has told me endless stories of his early days in the civil service. How he was posted in remote districts, remote places, and he would be walking along and the kind of things that he faced and the kind of dilemmas he had. And one particular is very amusing, so I want to tell you that. One day he was walking along the road and he saw a village woman walking along, and she had one child in one hip and a big bundle of hay in the other. And he felt bad because she was carrying 2 weights and walking. So he crossed to her and said, you can give me that bundle, I'll carry it for you. She felt bad. Now this is one Dora, how give him a bundle. So she said, no, you take the child. And Shankaran was embarrassed, he couldn't take the child. He didn't want to go through the town carrying a baby. He didn't mind going through the town carrying a bundle. So I don't know, I think by then somebody else came and took something or whatever. So there were endless stories, and sometimes because he was a young civil servant, he was working under older senior men, and because of his caste and language and so on, assumptions are made about him. And he tells me of how one senior civil servant went and wanted to have a bath in the Ganga, and Shankaran refused. He said, you go, I'll wait here. And that man got so angry, he brought a chug of water and poured it over Shankaran's head. Because he wanted Shankaran to be cleaned of his sins. There are endless. Long time I used to say, I started also writing some, but I can't, it's too painful. But that was a relationship that I will always treasure, that I have treasured. It was a personal relationship that built up into a total political alliance, because later with the peace talks and all that, Shankaran was central and I was involved. There was a lot going on. It was a close thing that carried us through. It was very precious. And his death, at a time when Kanna himself was so vulnerable, and weak and just out of surgery. It was very difficult for our family. It was difficult to tell Kanna that Shankaran was gone. He was not registering the fact. Then I said, would you like to have a tea? Everybody keeps asking about you. I thought that way it would be nice. Tea and Shankar, Yugandhar, all these people were there. Shall we have a small tea at home? People can come and have tea and meet you. So he kept giving me names. And then every third name he'll say Shankaran. I said, no, leave Shankaran, somebody else. But Karna has not accepted that. Finally, when we told him, he just wept. And I think some little part of his heart broke. But that was one of the most precious relationships in my life. It's a precious friendship. A friendship which was equal with Kanna, with me, with my children, with my grandchildren, with our dogs, with everything. I mean, he belonged to the whole family for a long time in a way that is difficult for me to describe. And I've never spoken about him anywhere. But I'm truly grateful to you for having given me this opportunity to speak my heart and put my own grief and my loss before you. Thank you.